It's another big afternoon in the world of pool. The second day of the Qatar Goodwood Festival upon us, and plenty to enjoy. And we're going to kick off with the first race of Handicap over 2,400 metres. Glorious, very much the name of the game. And starting out looking at the course map on that far side, and then again up that incline towards home. This 2,400 metre start for the opener. Let's have a look at the declarations for race 1. 12 going to post. Tagabawa, Struth, Westerton, Tony Montana, Fox Journey, Amleto, Inquiring Minds, Clan Chieftain, French Invasion, The Goats, Alumnus and Cool Party. Let's start by looking at some visual clues. And Graham, Fox Journey, a battling success last time, must have a good chance to repeat that win here.
Yeah, I think so, Tom. He's got a nice, solid, progressive profile. Don't think he's a star. This was Newbury, John, 1.5 miles, good ground. There he is, grey horse in the blue colours, King Power colours, and he battled out really well up against a similarly progressive horse. Softer ground likely for Wednesday's opening race. I don't think that will be too much of a problem. He's £5 higher in the weights, and I do think it's fair to say that Wednesday's task is a slightly stiffer one.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy for him, but he's got some decent pieces of form. He's got that Torito form from Epsom earlier on in the Whirlpool that we saw. That was a very progressive winner of that particular handicap. And the soft ground form you're referencing, fourth behind Artistic Star at Nottingham and a maiden, that's worked out pretty well too. So I think there shouldn't be any problems as far as the surface is concerned.
Yeah, it must have a pretty strong chance, I would say, as does Amleto, a horse that I'm quite keen on. Very lightly raced, Graham, but has already shown a fair level of form.
It's all about pedigree, potential, rather than proven form. But the pedigree and the potential, John, are rich, because this is a horse who's related to See the Stars, is the sire, a brother to the top quality filly C of class. This Kempton run was mildly promising back in the winter. He's since gone to Chester and won a decent maiden in really emphatic style on soft ground. Connections are impressive, pedigree's impressive. How good could he be?
I think he's got entitled to improve once again for that run at Chester that you referenced. He was on the speed throughout there, which is often the place to be at Chester, but they were kicking along at decent fractions. Clueless on his first run, then he improved for that one, then improved further still, so hopefully he'll be doing something similar. Indeed,
yes. Another pertinent form line could be that of Westerton, who has the amount of Ryan Moore here, Graham, only a good thing.
Yeah, two horses to look at here. In a decent handicap, Westerton runs very well. Towards the far side, in the Godolphin second colours, Tagawaba runs, I thought, a slightly disappointing race given his profile coming in here. But left of picture, white face, white colours, Westerton continues a really progressive run of form. He's moving up in trip. I think he'll stay. He gave Alan King, trainer, his 2,000th winner in a maiden at Sandown. Of the pair, John, which one do you like, or do you like both of them?
Well, they're both in the numbers. I'm going to go with Westerton marginally further up than Tagabawa, who the time before this was far too close to that crazy pace in the King George V handicap. Still ran pretty well, actually. The Kempton run was good, but Westerton's very consistent and the ground shouldn't be a problem.
OK, with all that in mind, it's time to get some selections. It is a very fiendish start to the day. But, Graham, what are you going to go for?
It is a tough start to the day, but I'm going to go with the potential and the pedigree of Amleto, number 6 for Haggis and Marquand, 3 Westerton, dead consistent, 5 Fox Journey, banging form, and 2 Struth for the Johnson Yard, who've done so well in this race over the years.
Indeed they have. John, what about you?
Yeah, similar numbers for me. I'm going to go with Amleto on top. Then in for second, I got Fox Journey for the reasons given, Westerton as well. I'm going to give Tagabawa one more chance. As I say, has not been well positioned to run. That Kempton performance prior to those 2 runs was pretty promising. I still think there's a bit more to come from him, but he's a bit wide in the run as well from stall 11. OK, it's a full house for Amleto, because I fancy him as well to improve markedly on what he's done so far in the opening race. Race 2 on the second day of the Qatar Goodwood Festival is the first group race of the afternoon. Is the Whispering Angel Oak Tree Stakes, a Group 3, and this one over 1,400 metres. This is how the course map looks, starting on that far side, just the one bend, and then coming uphill towards home for that 1,400 metre start. Group 3. To look forward to, 16 going to post, American Kestrel, Fast Response, International Angel, Jumbly, Samedi Rien, Sicilian Defence, White Moonlight, Brige. And the second page, Dream of Love, Glen Laurel, Juliet Sierra, Magical Sunsets, Matilda Picot, Olivia Meralda, Rage of Bambi, and Sydney Arms Chelsea. Let's have a look at some visual clues, starting with Jumbly, Graham, and a horse who's shown already a formidable level of form in the context of a race such as this one.
Yeah, she's good. She was pretty good for the Charltons. So good that New Connections went to 1.25 million guineas to buy her. She's got good form this season. She hasn't won, Pretty good second at the Curragh here, John, which we can see, and then fourth when well fancied for a Group 2 at Royal Ascot. I'm pretty sure she'll run well. I wonder if there might be one to beat her again. What do you think?
Yeah, I've got her in the numbers. Obviously, the Ascot form has been franked as well with Random Harvest the other day, so that's definitely a feather in her cap as well. She's proven at this sort of level, doesn't mind the ground. Yeah, she's going to not be too far away, I wouldn't have thought.
Stall 12 with Ryan Moore on board.
OK, lovely stuff. One of the highest rated fillies in the race is Olivia Meralda, and she's truly earned that rating, I would say, Graham, as well.
Yeah, she has. Keep a very close eye on the weather for this filly. Her trainer, Roger Varian, thinks she's a top-of-the-ground filly. She's not going to get that, but she might get away with good to soft. Either way, John, there's no question she's a pretty smart filly. She beat the boys here, including Holguin, who's boosted the form. Look at the way she quickens from off the pace. I think, ground permitting, this is a filly with plenty of potential.
Yes, she is. I was quite keen on her in the Jersey Stakes. So she's a little bit too far back in the run, but she came home well here, as you said. Holguin's franked the form as well. There's a little bit of form on soft ground. I mean, she was 7th in that 1,000 guineas at 125 to 1, so she outran expectations on the surface that day. She's got a solid chance. Against stall 9, a bit tricky, but I think she'll not be too far away.
Another piece of the puzzle we're going to survey here is Chelmsford last time out for White Moonlight. Well, I have to say, Graham, I thought it was given a fantastic ride by Kieran Schumacher.
Yeah, a couple of potential front runners on view here, and this White Moonlight is definitely one of them. She's fresh from 2 listed race wins, Musselburgh, and then here at Chelmsford. This is decisive. She's a hard runner on turf and on an all-weather surface, John. I've got one question mark on my notes. Deep ground. Would that be a problem?
It is. Well, it's not a problem, it's a question mark, but I really like that Musselburgh, and we're not seeing it here. The Chelmsford City run, she was a sort of controlling speed that day, but she was taken on at Musselburgh and still managed to hold off a whole bevy of closers late on, including Heredia, who's a very good filly. So she goes in for me on top. I think she's got a very good chance. She's reasonably well drawn in stall 7. A Sheen Murphy for side Bin Sirua. I like that combination.
Yeah, lethal combination indeed. A fiendish Group 3 to try and work out. But, Graham, let's have your selections.
I'm going elsewhere. Filly called Breege, number 8, who's got good Goodwood form, and she ran an absolute screamer. Personal best when second in a big handicap at Royal Ascot. Jason Hart's on board. I feel he's ready to really make that breakthrough to the top level before long. 8 Breege, 4 Jumbly, 14 Olivia Meralda, ground permitting, and 7 White Moonlight, Tom.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of jockey Jason Hart. John, would he be in your numbers as well?
Yeah, sneaks in there. When I go with White Moonlight out on top, there's a little question mark about the ground, but I think she's very, very promising indeed. I've always liked Matilda Pickott since I saw her as a 2-year-old. She's got some really good runs on her CV in the highest possible company. Jumbly, for the reasons we gave when we were looking at it earlier on, she's definitely a very high-quality filly. And Breege gets in there as well for all the points that Graham made.
Excellent stuff. I'm going to go out on a limb a bit and go with International Angel. Second in the race last year. Hopefully this time she can land the Whispering Angel Oak Tree Stakes. Race 3 on the second day of the Qatar Goodwood Festival is the second group race of the afternoon. This time the Jaeger Lookoutra Morecambe Stakes, a Group 3 over the flying 1,000 metres. Let's have a look at the course map. Often a very quick first furlong over this 1,000 metres before that incline towards the finish. And declarations for this are as follows. 8 going to post: Bahir, Barnwell Boy, Big Evs, Hackman, Killian, Marco Cole, Puro Sangue and Shagran all going to post for this Group 3 contest. And we can look at Big Evs to start off with in our visual clues. A horse who was second here, Graham, but won a big race next time at Royal Ascot.
Yeah, all these juveniles are very early in their progression at the moment, and we might look at this video, John, and think, well, nothing flash. If you're beating a red car, you surely won't go on to Royal Ascot and win. Yes, you can. Big Evs, Big Revs, as I call him, he went forward in a hurry. He was unfancied, or seemed unfancied, in the Windsor Castle, but he dominated a massive field of proven winners. This is one of the most exciting horses Mick Appleby has ever trained. What do you make of it?
I'm very keen on him. It was a huge figure he ran. Very few horses lead all the way in the Windsor Castle Stakes. Historically, a very difficult thing to do. Obviously, question marks about the ground, but no question marks about his speed.
Yeah, certainly. Mick Appleby says he is a machine. Right, another visual clue to look at. I've seen 2 very smart 2-year-old performances on the 5 furlong track at Sandown so far this season. One came from Elite Status, the other, Graham, came from Killian last time.
Yeah, Sandown can lend itself to wide margin winners, and that's something to bear in mind. This horse has the runs on the board now, and he's got experience. 4 runs, BHA mark of 105 now, John, based on this 6-length romp in the Dragon Stakes. Hackman's back for another crack with very little chance of reversing the form. Is this performance as good as it looked.
I think it's pretty close to being as good as it looked. He certainly settled better here than he did in the previous victory. He's a horse who's improving rapidly, just lugging in a little bit here. And again, one or two question marks about how if it gets really soft at Goodwood come Wednesday afternoon, how he'll handle it. But I mean, look at the way he really quickens away from them. Hackman is left trailing in his wake. So for me, again, this fellow goes in, especially if Big Evs really takes them along.
Yeah, really impressive success that was at Sandown. The last visual clue we're going to look at comes from Bahir, who most certainly has his best days ahead of him, I would say, Graham.
He's very well regarded, and it seems that he's also got a little bit of a king. This was a winnable race. The second didn't exactly polish the form massively at Ascot at the weekend, and he's just too classy, too speedy, too powerful. On the potential downside, his trainer Richard Hannon, who thinks he works like a crackerjack horse, also says that he's always been a bit of a hooligan. John, what do you think of him?
Well, possibly a little bit harsh to say that, but I mean, the level of form is very good. I think he's going to be probably well positioned in the run, along with Barnwell Boy as well, and Big Evs. There's going to be a lot of pace around him, so I think that's going to be slightly tricky as well.
Important to mention, Tom, that was a 6 furlong race, and there is a difference coming from 6 at Newbury down to a flying 1,000 metres here at Goodwood.
Absolutely right, Graham. Yeah, it's going to be fast and furious over that 1,000-metre trip. Selection time, Graham? You first.
Yeah, I'm keen on the top two here. In form terms, Big Evs and Killian stand out. I was so impressed by Big Evs at Royal Ascot. I'm going with 3, Big Evs, Big Revs, 5 Killian, 2 Barnwell Boy, who flopped at Royal Ascot but very good at Goodwood first time out, and the hooligan, number 1 Bahir, in for 4th.
OK, Big Revs for you or something else, John?
Very much so, yeah. Obviously, 1 or 2 issues about the pace, but Graham makes a good point that the other pace horses maybe won't even be able to keep up with him. The ground's a bit of a question mark, but I still think it was just an eye-poppingly good run there at Ascot. Also like Killian for all the reasons that we gave. And a similar 1, 2, 3, 4, because I've got Bahir in for 3rd and Barnwell Boy, who's got that Goodwood form, in for 4th.
Lovely. His trainer calls him a machine, so Big Evs will do for me in the 3rd race on the card. The feature race on the 2nd day of the Qatar Goodwood Festival. It is the Qatar Sussex Stakes, a Group 1 full of glitz and glamour, and it's over the 1,600-metre distance. We can have a look at that now. Undulation's the name of the game here. So important to stay well balanced in the lead up to the final furlong ahead of that incline over that 1,600-metre start. 6 going to post for this one. Aldari, Chindit, Factor, Cheval, Inspiral, Sharon and Paddington down the bottom. So a race full of quality. And talking of Paddington, we can start by looking at him, Graham, a horse who so far has done absolutely nothing wrong and everything right.
Very unusual character. Giant's Causeway, Rock of Gibraltar, Henry the Navigator, Rip Van Winkle, all won this superb mile race for Aidan O'Brien and Ballydoyle. It could well be that Paddington is cut from that sort of cloth. This was the first occasion when we realised he was a crackerjack horse. He's an unusual horse, John, in that he stalks and travels well. He's got this slightly ungainly high head carriage, but it doesn't stop him in any way. And from this day forward, he has looked a mighty difficult miler to beat.
Yeah, indeed, and he went up to 10 furlongs obviously, and he's now come back to the mile. But if you look at his breeding, I mean, he could easily go 1.5 miles as well. He showed a really good turn of foot off a fairly pedestrian gallop here to sprint away from them in the Irish 2,000 guineas, and obviously up in trip subsequently in the Eclipse he was tremendous too.
You see what I mean about that head carriage, Tom? It's slightly upright. It's right like, you know, the great 200 and 400 metre runner Michael Johnson, a little bit like that. Michael got a lot of gold medals, so has this fella, and after the Curragh he went for a showdown with the English 2,000 guineas winner Chaldean in the St James's Palace Stakes, and he was the governor from a fair way out.
He certainly was. They often say if you're brilliant you have to have a few quirks, and Paddington certainly has got those. He stepped up to that mile 2 trip in the Eclipse, and it was a pretty impressive performance, I thought, to see off Emily Upjohn, John, who's a very good filly in her own right, we know that.
Yeah, well, she slightly let the form down the other day at Ascot, but when she's good, she's very good, and she gave Paddington something to think about here. Paddington was always well positioned, but they didn't muck around in the run here. And going back to the St James Palace Stakes as well, that race was run at a really strong gallop over the 8 furlongs, and he was back in the run on mid-division, and he stayed on really strongly. So however a race is run, Graham, he seems to find a way of dealing with it.
Agreed. And prior to the videos we've seen, when he won the Madrid Handicap at the Curragh, it was very testing ground, so the rain won't be a problem. Once again, you see the old head is at a jaunty angle, but Emily has 2 or 3 goals at him, and she can never get past. The edge is right late on. He sets the bar high here, and one of the reasons he sets it so high is because of the horses who aren't here. I'm talking about Nostrum, I'm talking about Chaldean, I'm talking about the Queen Anne winner Triple Time. So his main rivals may be at home in the boxes while he's on his way to Goodwood.
Absolutely. His biggest danger could easily turn out to be Inspiral, who has managed to escape and evade our cameras over the last 18 months or so. but, Graham, a very smart filly when she's on song.
Yeah, she's what I call an ale or jail filly. Sometimes it's celebration, sometimes you wonder what she's playing at. When she's good, she's very, very good. And in the Queen Anne at Royal Ascot last time, John, she was pretty good. She couldn't quite get past triple time, but she ran fairly close to a rating of 120.
Yeah, and she was in the wrong part of the track there because she started slowly. And unfortunately, that's what Inspiral does quite a lot of the time, and that's not going to help at Goodwood because you need to get out quickly and get into a good position. Obviously, horses can close if they go too strong out in front, but I'm not too sure it's going to happen here. She will need things to fall right, I think, given her style of running.
But key point to mention is when she's on song, she is a proven Group 1 racehorse, and that is more than you can say for a few of these.
Yeah, absolutely. Frankie the Tory's in the saddle for Inspiral. A quick word to Graham on the chance of Aldari, who we've got to give a mention to.
If it rains and rains and rains, he will run really well. There has been some rain on the Monday. There are potential showers on Tuesday, and then it might be a little better. I'm not sure he's quite good enough to win an average renewal of this race unless it's very deep. I could see him running well on a minor line, but I was looking for a little more from him last time at Ascot when Master of the Seas gave him weight and a handsome beating.
Yeah, I mean, he ran very well to win the Balmoral Handicap on a bog at Ascot back in the autumn, but for me, he's got to make that step up. But as Graham says, if it gets really soft, then he's definitely got some sort of place chance.
OK, let's have a look at our last visual clue, and that comes in the form of Chindit, who I think, Graham, has actually improved this season.
He's an unusual character, the Chindit. This is the Lockinge Stakes. Another absentee from this year's Sussex is the Lockinge winner, Tom. Modern Games. You get the feeling this is a winnable Group 1. Blue colours, left of picture. Strongly run race, Modern Games, comes on powerfully, wins decisively. In those stripes, he's got new colours these days. He's been purchased by Indian Connections. Keep a close eye on Chindit. When things get tight, he tries to take a bite from Modern Games, John.
Yeah, and he ended up biting William Buick, I think, in this situation too. But if you forget all that, it was a very good run there. I was slightly disappointed with him in Ascot, but he has been sixth in this race before. He was fourth in a Celebration Mile. Again, if it's a sort of fiddly tactical race and he's on the speed, he might be difficult to get past. But I'm not quite as keen on him as I would have been at this sort of price maybe a year or so ago.
Well, Paddington looks the one to beat on form so far. Let's see what the experts think. Graham, starting with you.
Yeah, he's been on the right lines all season, and this is the perfect platform for him again. It's hard to oppose Paddington. Number 6, 4 Inspiral, proven Group 1 filly, 1 Aldari, soft ground form, and 2 Chindit.
And John?
Yep, 6 Paddington, he's frightened them all off, and I think he'll win. He's a tremendous 3-year-old. Inspiral, for all the reasons that Graham gave, as I say, he's not ideal at the track for her, but I think she'll go very well. Aldari, if it gets really soft, and Factor Cheval as well, if it gets very soft, got lots of really good form over in France in very, very deep conditions. OK,
and Paddington for me as well. Can't wait to see him in action in the feature race on the card. That is the Group 1 Sussex Stakes. Race 5 on the second day of the Qatar Goodwood Festival. Another flying 1,000 metre contest, this time for fillies. Let's have a look at the course map for this one. And again, over the shortest distance there is at Goodwood. That first furlong can be pretty quick, and again rising towards the end of the race. That's the 1,000 metre start. Let's have a look at declarations for this condition stakes then. 13 going to post. Beanham, Cotai Vision, Dappling, Flora of Bermuda, Havana, Indispensable, Juniper Berries, Luby, Make It Easy, Princess Shazara, Thanks But No Thanks, Tropical Island, and Ziggy's Dream. And quite a pertinent form line here, Graham. Could be Dappling, who beat a few of these last time.
Absolutely. Look at a couple of these, actually. Dappling, Beanham and Juniper, all highlighted. Juniper Berries, excuse me. Relief Rally is just way too strong for all of them, and she's a good horse. But Dappling ran a personal best, aggressive speed on the far side. In the dark colours and the yellow markers in the centre there, Beanham comes on pretty strong late in the piece, and I thought Juniper Berries in the yellow colours on the far side fades late and doesn't really fire her best shot. Not much between Dappling. I think a length to make up between Dappling and Beanham. I would give Beanham a chance of reversing that form because of the Goodwood form she showed, but I think this is a key galloping clue whichever way you slice it, John.
Absolutely. Dappling, this was a career best performance from her. She's been quite well tried already for a horse of this age, but the soft ground seemed to bring out the best in her, and she got lots of early pace, and I think she'll get into a good position here. OK, Carl Burke's 2-year-old's been going really well so far this season. Havana is another one of those. Is it going to be Cuban cigars for connections with Havana here, Graham?
She's a pretty good filly, Havana. She's 2 from 3. I want to ask John Blance about this. This York novice race, she wins it, and she wins it really well, quickening up nicely on the outside. I keep looking at her action, Tom, and thinking she's a really good, fluent mover. and I wonder if the softish ground might be a little bit more problematic to her than to 1 or 2, especially if she's held up on a flying 1,000 metre track like Goodwood.
Exactly, but they're obviously sufficiently confident to try her on it, so I think there's obviously a little bit of stable confidence there that she will handle it, but Graham's right, all the form so far on good or faster.
Yeah, really competitive race to try and work out, but Graham's going to give it his best shot first.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a filly we haven't mentioned yet. I'm going to throw to John. I think Flora of Bermuda is a horse we should take a close look at here. John can make the case for her, but I'm going to go 4, 1, 3 and 12 with Flora of Bermuda on top. Give me some confidence in Flora, please, John.
Well, I mean, she likes the ground. She ran pretty well on debut at Sandown on that surface, and that run in the Queen Mary was very good as well, certainly hinting that there was more still to come, and I think she'll go pretty well. Sheen Murphy, Andrew Balding, the old firm teaming back up again. I think she'll just position off what will be a pretty strong gallop and hopefully pounce in the closing stages.
Lovely. I'm going to go slightly elsewhere and go for Kotai Vision, daughter of Kotai Glory. Showed so much speed last time out at Bath. Hopefully she can burn them off in the 5th race on the card. Race 6 on the second day of the Qatar Goodwood Festival is a 2,000 metre fillies handicap, and this is how the course map is going to look for this one. Slightly longer than the previous couple of races, and they go around that far bend before climbing uphill towards home. This 2,000 metre start. Declarations look at like this. 12 going to post. Rusey, Sirona, Persist, There's the Door, Queen Regent, La Isla Mujeres, Chips and Rice, value added in these shoes, Decoration, Therapist and Never Ending. Time for our first visual clue then, Graham. Hopefully going to get the pronunciation of this one right. La Isla Mujeres, who has done nothing but improve so far.
Yeah, John Blance is your man for Spanish pronunciations. This is a really good performance, John. This was not a big field, but it was most certainly a competitive race. And look at the way this filly forges clear. She's gone up £11, but that's only to be expected when you win by such a wide margin. She also has a Group 3 entry in Ireland, so she's pretty well regarded. Hard to knock the case for this filly, even with an £11 hike.
Yeah, it's a big hike, but I was there at Kempton when she won as well. She sort of controlled the speed that day. This was a tougher effort out in front, but yeah, she's just improving a lot. And there was a lot of speed engaged in this race at the 5-day stage. Some of it's gone out. There's still a bit there, but there's not as much as there was, and I think that will help her.
La Isla Mujeres?
La Isla Mujeres, yeah.
Oh, I like the that was a flourish.
Beautiful diction, that
My
was.
wife would be proud of me.
Cheveley Park look like got a strong hand in this race. Let's have a look at one of their runners, starting off with Therapist here. Graham, what kind of a chance do you think?
John, I'm going to need a therapist if this filly wins here, because I've left her out of my numbers, but I know you like her a little more than me.
Well, yeah, in the sense that this was a race where she travelled really strongly, and then there was pace injected with about 3 furlongs to go, and then she's kind of got drawn into that. I think she's just peaked on her run ever so slightly. She gets pincered by 2 closers here on this piece of form, and I think here at a track that just suits horses that are more prominently ridden than maybe Newmarket did, I think she'll go well.
Worth mentioning that she's got pretty good handicap form against the boys as well, so she's been into pretty deep ponds on the last 2 starts and run very well.
OK, the final visual clue that we are going to look at, that is There's the Door. And Graham, I know you're a fan of this one.
Yeah, this is a speculator on my part. I'm putting this filly in on top in the belief that it might get very soft, because when it does, she's a really handy filly. She's not very big, as you can see on this video, 3 from the left, but she tries really, really hard. And this is a good while ago. She's improved since then. She won a handicap on deep, deep ground at Doncaster in the spring. She tried her heart out again when placed at Ascot last time. Keep a very close eye on the weather. If after Tuesday and into Wednesday it's clear, the mud is flying, she will run a very solid, bold race.
I think she will. I mean, she's a hold-up horse over further, which makes you a little bit concerned at Goodwood, but there is still some pace in this race, and as Graham says, if it gets really soft, she'll be staying on while others have cried enough.
OK, another pretty tough one to try and work out. Let's start with Graham. Selection time.
I think we've got some solid ones at the top here, and I'm hoping that 4, There's the Door, will be a win and place price. If it's soft ground, she'll try hard. 6, La Isla Mujeres. How's that, John?
Beautiful.
She's in tremendous form. 10, Decoration, we haven't mentioned, we should. She's progressive. And 5, Queen Regent.
And John?
Yeah, I like Therapist on top. Queen Regent is a very interesting horse, ran well at Wolverhampton behind a horse called Value Added, who's still in the race as well. Value Added got the absolute run of the race. Queen Regent didn't. She stayed on very well. I think she might need a bit further, actually, but I think she could go quite nicely here. La Isla Mujeres in for 3rd, and There's the Door in for 4th.
OK, lovely stuff. I'm hoping Chips and Rice can pay for my dinner. I think she's got a good chance for James Fanshawe in that, the 6th race on the card. The final race on the second day of the Qatar Goodwood Festival is the World Pool Handicap, and it's over 1,400 metres. Let's have a look at the course map for this. We've seen a couple of races already over this distance throughout the course of the couple of days, and this one, just like those we've seen earlier, rising towards the finish with one bend. 1,400 metres, the distance, 17 going to post. Big field. Darkness, Hazim, Isla Kai, Urban Sprawl, Roscollin, Thunderball, Bailey's Gut Feeling, Dark 30 and Physique. And then we've got Wob Wob Wob, Classic, Larado, Farazi Lane, Love de Vega, Harry Magnus, Mamilius and Secret Strength. Graham, let's start by looking at Classic at Sandown last time.
Yeah, Classic's a pretty useful horse. He's been to Goodwood before. He ran respectively for 6, but there was a bit of a speed wobble on the bend when he came wide, so handling the track could be an issue. This was a personal best for him. Well-run handicap, stalks, pounces late. He is one of the horses in this field who might have slightly more of a question to answer than a few if the ground gets deep, John.
I think he does. This was a good effort though. Novus, the filly who finishes second, is very progressive as well, so the right horses came to the fore here. Stall 15, 7 furlongs with that bend coming up very quickly. Historically not ideal, especially at this trip here at Goodwood, so for me, respect this horse's chance but hasn't quite made the numbers.
Yeah, I love the way that he finished the race off there. Let's talk about another last time out winner, this time in the shape of Darkness, Graham, who really bounced back to form last time out at Newmarket.
No question. Stall 12 doesn't look too bad. He's got the Goodwood form. He was short-head second here as recently as June. And he's in a consistent vein at the moment. Have a look at this Newmarket performance, John. Tell me what you think. I thought, left of picture of the leaders, when he hits the front, he slightly decides he has enough done. He pricks his ears, he edges a bit to the left. I think he's idling, and I think he might be value for a little bit more than the winning margin. In short, a banging form horse.
Yeah, from stall 12, he'd have to start better than he did on this particular occasion. He was a bit awkward out the gates, and again, those little fine margins in a race over the 1,400 at Goodwood can be telling. So he's top weight. He's top weight for a reason, but I think he's going to struggle from gate 12.
OK, another visual clue we've got for you. Dark 30, finishing third last time out, Graham, behind 2 big improvers.
Yeah, this is a likeable horse who's pretty versatile trip-wise. They went back to 6 furlongs with him at Newmarket last time. This, as you can see, is a really big field, full of banging form, progressive 3-year-olds. He was right up there from the start. No excuses needed, he just ran really well, and we know that he's every bit as effective over the longer trip. He's 2 from 13, he goes well on soft, and he's drawn 2, John.
Exactly, so he's got a very good draw. This Quinault is a very, very progressive horse, so no disgrace in running third, beaten 3 1/4 lengths behind that one. Good Goodwood form in there as well. Definitely drawn to stall 2, like Graham is, has the speed to get into a nice position.
Yes, got a good stall, unlike Thunderball, who's out in the car park, but we can look at his win 2 starts ago, and this was a good performance, Graham.
He is drawn way out west, this Thunderball. Unusual horse in that he took, I think it was 10th or 11th time lucky in this race at Newbury, but when he finally won, John, he didn't spare the horses. He bounded well clear, and after this he went on to a very hot Britannia handicap at Royal Ascot and ran very, very well for a long way. So a lot of pluses here. What do you make of the draw? He's a fast horse and he might be able to get across and get a handy position.
Well, that's the hope. I was desperate for him to get a good draw because it was such a good run at Royal Ascot in that race won by Docklands at Britannia Stakes. Docklands came from a different part of Berkshire, so to be on the speed there was a really terrific effort. He's improved massively. I mean, he was completely unconsidered in the betting at Ascot as well, 66 to 1. It was a terrific effort, so he's in the numbers, but gate 16 just put me off a little
I think they have to gut him, don't they?
Yeah.
I don't think they can hold him up and try and pounce. I think they have to use his exuberance to try and get across early.
Yeah, so many angles in this really competitive contest. Let's get some selections. First up from Graham.
And going with a horse we haven't mentioned so far. It's a horse who's come so far down the handicap. He's owned by friends and colleagues of ours, the horse watchers. Roscollin has plummeted in the weights, and this is the first time that Oisin Murphy has ridden him since he was a very close second in the Golden Mile, much better race a couple of years ago. Last time he was a pretty good second at Beverley. The blindfold came off late. It was all hard work from there on. But he has to be a pretty well handicapped horse. Roscollin on top, 1 Darkness, 6 Thunderball, and 8 Dark 30.
And you, John?
Yeah, I've got Dark 30 on top. I think there's lots in his favour. Thunderball, obviously, tricky draw. I echo everything that Graham said. It was only a Class 4 race at Beverley that Roscollin won, but second in, but it looks like he's back to something like his best. And yeah, from 104 to 87 in the ratings, the handicap has been kind. Urban Sprawl was a blowout last time out, but prior to that, in the aforementioned Britannia Stakes, ran really well. Don't want to totally write off Charlie Johnson horses at Goodwood.
Excellent stuff. I'm going to echo Graham's sentiments and hope that Roscollin can continue his resurgence in the final race on the card.